Our next guest is Karen Purdom, who is a cancer survivor herself, a resident of Washington County, and who has been in charge in the past with Relay for Life and is always big in helping with Relay for Life here in Washington County. I want to thank you, Karen, for being here today.
Well, you're welcome, Lisa. It's good to be here, always to talk about Relay.
Yeah. Well, we just had Patricia O'Brien on the show, who is a cancer fighter, who still, has cancer, and she's a real motivator, and I think is for everyone.
Exactly. Patricia's fought this for years, and I don't know of anyone really in the county maybe who has fought back as often and long as she has, and she's amazing.
Yeah. 7 years now she's been dealing with that. Yeah. And you, on the other hand, have been cancer-free now for 9 years,
9
you said?
years. It's been 10 and a half since I was diagnosed. I went through treatment for a little over a year and then went into remission. So
yeah.
Yeah,
and so that's good too. And I know you would say too, Karen, that like Patricia said, prayers have been a big part of that as well.
Exactly. I think Patricia's on every prayer list in the county, and I think at the time I was as well. And I'm a believer in research and what's going on in the medical field today, but I think it goes hand in hand with faith.
Yeah.
And I don't think one can have without the other. So that has a large part to do with it.
Yeah. I think so too. I certainly think that plays a big role, and as Patricia's attitude as well, and as your faith and your attitude. So, we can walk right out this door and get hit by a car, and so none of us know how long we have.
Exactly. Just to live every day as He would have you to do it, and I think that's the important thing. And going through cancer, I think you realize that even more. Relay talks about having more birthdays. Everybody should have more birthdays. But I kind of look at it as milestones in your lives. For me, it was seeing my children graduate. I had, at the time I was diagnosed, my middle child was a senior in high school, and my goal was to see him graduate from high school, and my doctor said, we're going to get you there. And then we got to college, and now my youngest is a year away from graduating from college. So those are the milestones I've looked at.
Yeah.
So I think we all have those.
Yeah, how exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, now, Karen, and since your diagnosis, I know your family have always been very supportive and participated in Relay for Life.
Exactly. My parents actually started Karen's Crusaders the year after I was diagnosed, and so we've been involved in Relay as a team now for, I guess, 9 years that we've been doing it. This might have been actually our 10th year. Mom is the captain, and so we've had a lot of cancer actually in our family. My father was already a cancer survivor, prostate cancer, and a week before Relay last year, my mother was diagnosed with a thymoma, which is a gland behind your heart, and she had a major tumor. So a few weeks after Relay, we were being really quiet through Relay, knowing that was going on, so it was a tough Relay for us. She had almost comparable to an open heart surgery in Lexington, and they removed all of the cancer. No treatments were required, and so she is also now a survivor. And it did come back as malignant, and so we've been very blessed once again that cancer hit our family, but we managed to get through that as well. So it's been a very big factor as far as our involvement in Relay and our continuing involvement in Relay.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, I don't know if I knew that or not, Karen, about Wilma.
Yeah, took her probably 6 months to recover well,
Uh-huh.
and she's doing fine now.
Uh-huh. Well, you have to give her my regards.
I'll do that.
My regards, Wilma.
Maybe she'll be watching.
You'll have to watch this program, and I'm glad you're doing well. Yeah. So, now, tell me more, Karen, about Relay for Life, because we've had it now in this county. We used to join with Marion, and now we've had it over here in Washington County for how many years now?
I think I was told about 11 years, I think. So it started over here not too long before my diagnosis, and we did originally, I think Marion County, Washington County got to be very large, and so that's when they decided to go county by county. And even though we're a small county, the American Cancer Society still, I guess, promotes that. They like seeing it on a county basis. And we're very small, but I know our first few years were really big in Relay. The last 3 years we have raised in excess of $34,000 each year. So this year we are a little bit ahead of $35,000 and can still continue to take in funds until August. So we still have a few funds trickling in. So we feel really good about the size of our county with all the worthy causes that are out there, that we're still able to contribute that much to the American Cancer Society. And Relay for Life is their premier fundraiser. That is a worldwide fundraising event now, I think in over 20 countries.
Wow.
And so it is the major supporter of a lot of the cancer research in this country.
Do you know how much they, percentage-wise, of those funds do go to research? Do you have?
I don't have the breakdown. I know a few years ago I kind of checked into how well they handled the amount of funds going toward research and actual programs as opposed to administrative costs. And the American Cancer Society is one of the lowest administrative cost of any of your national organizations, your charitable organizations. So that makes me feel very good about a wise use of the money that we're raising. But predominantly goes to research, but it also goes to support programs like transportation, lodging for cancer patients and their families, and some programs to kind of help the cancer patient themselves feel good about themselves while they're going through treatment. So I guess sort of a care package type of program that they have. And most oncology offices can put you in touch with American Cancer Society representatives and programs to kind of help you through some of those things as you're going. So that's kind of helped. That's kind of their plug into actually working directly with patients rather than just with doctors and researchers.
I see. Okay. So then the funds that are collected here go to the American Cancer Society, and then those are distributed among different oncology offices. Do you know if we get back here what what's put in here necessarily, or how any of that works?
I think it all goes into one pool, and then I'm sure the research universities apply for those funds and specific doctors depending on the type of cancer they're researching. So I would look for it to go mostly to things like probably University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, that have research doctors in their departments there. So that's where most of those kinds of funds wind up. And then that research, of course, trickles back down to us as patients and survivors here in the county.
Right, right. And, I was talking with Patricia about, of course, Donnie, her husband, has taken her to her treatments, chemo treatments. But what if someone doesn't have someone to take you to your treatment?
There actually is a transportation program, and I believe usually your doctor's office can put you in touch with the people that do that. We don't have an American Cancer Society office here in Washington County. The main office here in Kentucky is in Louisville. But you actually can be put in touch with people there that can arrange for you to either have volunteers transport you, and I believe sometimes they do like a stipend toward your transportation cost. So, and I don't know exactly how you get that here, but I think contacting I think they usually call them patient educators in those offices, and they can put you in touch with organizations that can take care of that for you.
Used to be the Cabinet for Families and Children. You could go to the office there and get this medical transportation money. And, that was a program I used to work with many years ago, and I don't know if that still exists or not.
Yes, and I believe the American Cancer Society is a different program. I think it's called Road to Recovery is the name of that program. So if you're in your oncologist office, just maybe ask their patient educator about that. It's called Road to Recovery, and it is a transportation program for patients in need. We also have a Hope Lodge located in Lexington, and that is also available to patients and their families who are there for overnight treatment, surgeries, whatever the case may be. And those are, you just call the lodge itself actually to make those those reservations.
Yes. Okay. And now that's in Lexington.
That one's in
Is
Lexington.
there one in Louisville?
I don't believe there is one in Louisville. The only
Okay.
one I'm aware of is Lexington.
Okay. So now Relay for Life this year was held at St. Catherine College. Unfortunately, that's the second time I've discussed St. Catherine today, and it just breaks my heart.
Right.
So I guess we don't even know at this point. Well, we had it at the park last year, Adelaide Park.
We had Relay at St. Catherine for several years until 2 years ago. We decided to change it up a little bit and had it out of Adelaide Park, and that was a wonderful location as well. This year, early on, we had some St. Catherine individuals interested in having it back there. Our chair this year was actually an employee at St. Catherine, a young man there, Chris Owens, and so he was anxious to have it back at St. Catherine. So we were fortunate that with the situation there, we were able to go ahead and have it. I think the closing was actually announced the week of Relay, so we had a few days of concern there, but it worked out wonderfully. The employees there were so helpful. I can't say enough for their maintenance department. And we didn't lose out on the city support either. The city brought their stage out for us, set that up, took it down. So it's been just a good partnership with all these organizations. And, I'll be interested to see how we deal with next year. We may be back at the park. There's a lot of suggestions on changes floating around, how we can make it a really top-notch event. And so I look for a few more changes coming down. We have to be open to that, I think.
Who's on that committee, Karen?
This year, that committee, myself, Chris Owens from St. Catherine, Monica Osborne, Tammy Osborne, who chaired a few years ago.
Right.
Then we had Kathy Carrico, Connie Mackin, Ann Basiley. So we have a good group from around the county. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't know if all of those, but several of those are cancer survivors themselves.
Yes, they are.
Anna Faye, Kathy. I don't know about Monica. Or
Monica's not, just family involved.
Right.
She was a member of our team. So just most of the people on the committee have had some sort of connection with cancer, either through a family member or themselves. And a lot of times that's the thrust behind getting teams started. We did have 10 teams this year, 10 teams registered. We had 6 at the actual event. Had beautiful weather for it, so it was a nice evening. We have cut it back from an overnight event to a 6-hour event. We've done that for 2 years now, and that's a lot easier on us older people.
Yeah, it used to go all night, and everybody would be so worn out, sleeping in their lounge chairs and things like that. And for several years, I know we had a team too, and Fran Carrico, our niece, I think she walked the survivor lap this year. I wasn't able to be there.
Fran does. Fran comes every year and walks, and we're trying to get her a little more involved. So, Fran, if you're watching, we're trying to get you more involved.
Yeah, Fran. She'll thank me for that, Karen.
Yeah, she will.
But we do have, a lot of cancer survivors in this county, and
it is amazing what a small county we have and how many cancer patients and survivors we have. My husband says it's because we just know everybody. In a larger area, you might not know all the names, but for us, I think in Washington County, cancer has a face.
Yeah.
And it's usually our neighbors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it really does. And I know there's been discussion, and I think I've checked with the health department myself in the past because I said, golly, how many, are we on the higher end of cancer diagnoses here, you know,
Right.
because of, and I think it's like Joey says, it's more because we know everybody,
Right.
but I don't think our the ratio is any higher than the national average. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I've wondered that myself. It seems like it, like I said, but I think it's because we're a small county. But it does seem like we have a very large percentage of cancer here.
Isn't it is it 1 in 3? Is that
It
still
is,
the ratio?
I think so, and that's high.
That's
a
high.
third. That's a third.
I think
And
that's
there's-
correct. Now I could be wrong,
Right.
but
And so many different types of cancer too. I mean, we have just a range. I had multiple myeloma, which few people have ever heard of before. That's actually a bone and bone marrow cancer, so it's grouped in with leukemia and lymphoma. Breast cancer is probably the most well known and the most frequent cancer we have in the county. But just so many different types, and they all present differently, you know, different symptoms, that kind of thing. And I did have a chance to talk to Patricia in the hall for a minute, and we were in agreement that you have to know your body and you have to recognize if something's not right. Don't just let it slide. You know, if you know in your heart when something's not right and something's wrong, pursue that. If you're not getting an answer that you want, pursue that, because 9 times out of 10, I think you're going to be right about your own body. You know your system, and you know when there's a problem there.
yeah, I don't know. I think men, particularly, I hate to, you know, say that necessarily, but I think oftentimes you see a lot of men will ignore symptoms, and I think women are more inclined, you know, to check things out.
I think men generally just don't like to go to the doctor.
That's what it is, Karen. That's what it is.
And
yeah.
you'll get used to that, though, if you're diagnosed.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
used to it.
So better to do the preventative,
Exactly.
where you only have to see the doctor as needed, rather than
Right.
once you're diagnosed with cancer and
right.
you're at the doctor all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you have any other recommendations or anything, Karen, for anybody as far as cancer or diagnoses or relay or anything?
Just, you know, as Patricia was saying, you know your body and know if there's something wrong. Don't be afraid to pursue that. And as far as doctors, I think everybody has to find a fit. I just had a wonderful group of doctors from Springfield to Louisville to Chicago that all worked well together. And I think that it's important that you assemble that team that you need. Research your own diagnosis and your treatment. Make sure it's the right treatment that you feel comfortable with. You know, just those kinds of little things. If you're just not comfortable with something, with a particular doctor or a treatment, you know, look it up, ask questions. We're responsible for our own bodies to some extent, so I think we can't always rely on, you know, thinking we're just going to happen into the right fit. I think I did. I think I was very fortunate in that respect. But I think some people are kind of sometimes wandering through the waters trying to figure out which direction to go. And so it helps if you know what questions to ask, and make sure you go in with your list of questions when you go to see a doctor. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. And as far as relay, you know, we're looking for more people to be involved. We're looking maybe at talking to businesses next year, not necessarily for forming teams, but even to do a one-day fundraiser. You know, sell hot dogs out of your business one day and let the proceeds go to relay, or a certain percentage of your sales for a day to relay. So we're hoping to get few more programs like that going on, a little bit different than the team efforts that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, well, that's really good. I think those are great ideas. I'd like to go back, to what you said about assembling your team, because, you know, we have lots of cancer patients who don't always do their own research. My brother, for one, who just completed some radiation treatment. And so fortunately, he has his sister who has who makes sure that all those questions get answered.
Exactly.
And but you know, I do think you're mentioning that concept of being proactive and doing your own research, and also not hesitating to ask questions. And expecting to get those questions answered.
Exactly.
And assembling your team that of doctors that you are comfortable with, and doctors that relate to each other. Now, did your doctors do that?
They did very well, and one of the things I think it's very hard for a cancer patient at the very beginning of the diagnosis to do the research. The first few weeks I couldn't look at it, because the first time I got on the internet and looked at the statistics, it scared me. So I had to wait a little while, but I was able to take caretakers with me, either my husband or my mom, and make sure that they were hearing the same things I was hearing. I was on a lot of medications at the very beginning, a lot of steroids, and so I wasn't always real clear-headed. So always have that second person with you. Write down questions between appointments and be prepared to ask them. I actually started out with some doctors in Danville. I was having just some nagging symptoms and couldn't quite figure it out, and so one doctor sent me one way, and I loved those doctors. They were doctors I'd been to before, but I just wasn't getting my questions answered, and it just was in the back of my mind that something was wrong. So after another test, I came back to my doctor here, and I said, there's something going on, and I'm not getting where I need to be, I don't think. And that was 4 months after I had been trying to investigate my little nagging symptoms. She was on the phone immediately with the doctor in Louisville, got me there within a week, whereas the delay was going to be a little longer. And from there, phone call that day to Chicago. So all of my reports passed back and forth between all three of those teams of doctors. My doctor here in Springfield gets every report from Louisville or from Chicago after testing or anything. So to be able to, coordinate my medications and
Coordination of care.
yes, it makes
Very
all the
important.
difference in the world.
Yeah, that is really good to know, Karen, and I think that was because you were proactive, and so you made sure of that, I suspect.
You have to be.
That means you have to be a little assertive sometimes.
It does. And if you're a caretaker going in with a patient, and I was a little bit of that with my mother last year as she was going in, I'm questioning the doctor because now I know a little more about chemo or radiation, and we're worried about follow-up treatments, which luckily she didn't have to have. But, I'm on the internet looking it up, so I know what to ask. And so anyway, make sure you have a person. If you yourself are not the person to do that, have a close friend or relative that you're comfortable with doing that for you.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to know because, as I said, I think sometimes with men, my brother hasn't been very good about asking any questions. And my sister Cindy, she just goes right in there and takes charge.
Exactly.
And it's a good thing.
It is.
I think everybody needs that advocate.
It is.
So so your advice would be to people that if you don't have your advocate, then you need to get one.
Yes, you need to find a friend or relative to go along with you.
A friend or relative doesn't have to be a relative, just a friend. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think too, if it may be that the patient themselves might go in and say, well, after I take this medication, I feel a little nauseous or I'm a little tired. Well, the patient themselves might not speak up and say that, but if the family member or friend knows that, they're more likely to say it. And so then that might just be a matter of adjusting a medication or something. So just little things, I think, like that. It just helps to have that second pair of ears and eyes.
Yeah, that's really good, Karen. I appreciate your mentioning that to the viewing audience, and I know the viewers on Central Kentucky TV will appreciate that because those are things that people need to know.
Yeah.
And then also you mentioned that in order in this county that with the American Cancer Society, it's not too late to send in a donation.
That's true. You can still contribute to the teams, and they will turn the money in. If you have a donation you'd like to drop off, you can drop it off to me. I'm still treasurer.
And you're
and
dropping
I'm
off
located at Greg Goatley Law Office is where I work, and so I can still take money until August. We will, after that, we'll do a wrap-up meeting to talk about how things went this year and to really start planning for next year. So the planning kind of goes along all year. We did have a new American Cancer Society representative assigned to our county this year, so that put us a few months behind in our planning. But he's on board now and hopes to become a familiar face around Washington County. So
And what's his name?
His name is Drew Underwood,
Okay.
and wasn't able to be here today with us, but hopefully a lot of people will soon meet him. He's planning to be over here every few weeks to be out and about in the county, and has already made quite a few contacts. And
Oh, well, good.
so I think he'll be a good representative for us.
Okay. And then caring people could call you if they say, hey, you know, I want to, make a donation, but of course they want it to be, you can always donate online, I guess, to the American Cancer
can.
Society, but can you designate Washington County when you do that?
You can. If you go online, there would be a way. I would suggest you go to, it's www.cancer.org, and from there you can click on Get Involved. That'll take you to the Relay website, and so you can search for a Relay event. So you search for Washington County, Kentucky, and from that website, once you find our page, you can actually make an online contribution which goes directly to our county Relay.
Okay, good.
So very simple.
Okay, good. Well, or call you at Greg Goatley's office.
Right.
Which I'm probably inclined to do.
That's fine. Or drop a check back by made payable to American Cancer Society.
American Cancer Society, yeah. And then if people want, and then the same if people want to get involved with Relay for next year, then they can contact you about that.
Let us know.
And also any businesses and things that want to put on fundraisers, and they can do the same.
Yeah, we're very open to that. Even in a small county, we're hoping to maintain our level of funding. And we've been able to do that for 3 years in a row now, so we're really pleased.
Yeah. Well, that's really great, and I want to thank you and all of the committee, and of course all the teams. We want to thank them for their participation as well. Karen's Crusaders being one of those.
Yes.
And so all the teams. I know Carolyn Harden, usually with Harden's Jewelry, Gitson, Janice Tingle. Usually they're involved. I know. I don't know. I can't think of all the teams, but anyway, I'm just glad that we've got such good participation here, and hopefully next year we'll have more. Right?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else you want to say?
I think that's everything. We just certainly appreciate you allowing us to talk about Relay a little bit today, and hope to do it again.
Well, Central Kentucky TV is really good about, covering Relay for Life. And, so I just have to thank Gary White for that.
Thanks, Gary.
And thanks for being here, Karen.
Okay, nice to see you again.